watching animations, and it's hard to abstain from giving our opinions, though we're not classically trained. But we're gonna do it anyway, so just prepare your brain. Buckle up, cause it's the smear campaign.
Oh, potatoes and molasses. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey.
It's Smear Campaign, blurring the lines between reality and animation.
Why didn't you say it, Kyler?
I don't know the word.
My name's Sam.
I'm Esperanza.
And we have a very special guest with us today.
His
Hi,
name's Kyler.
I am Kyler.
And now we all know.
Just adding another unprofessional onto the repertoire.
Yeah, if you
You
listen
guys
to...
aren't paying me? Why am I here?
Why are we here? We're not getting paid.
Someday we will.
See, you gotta jump in early, because if you jump in when we're already successful, then it's gonna be harder for you to,
Oh, I gotta get on the ground floor. I got you.
Yeah, you want to work up some, what do you call it? When you just hire all your family, that kind of thing?
Nepotism?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to get in on that?
You think Kyler's my son?
I don't know.
Am I not?
Oh my god.
Where am I?
Anyway, so what
Folks,
did we watch?
This is a podcast about cartoons. This week, because we release them weekly, we watched Over the Garden Wall.
Yes, we did.
It's a miniseries from Cartoon Network.
When he said we just watched.
Yeah.
Like, as in, finished last episode and then booted it up.
Yeah, and then we got some seltzer, and then we set up the microphone, and then I found out what room tone means.
Yeah, it's the thing you do before you were already doing it.
I'm being very accusatory, even though you just told me what a word means. Doesn't make much sense.
So who wants to sum up the show?
We should go episode by episode. Does everyone remember what every single episode is about?
I do.
Actually,
Sam.
yes.
It's all in my head.
Esperanza, you kick us off, and we'll go one by one.
Suddenly, I forgot the entire first episode.
I'll start.
Dang it.
I'll do the third episode.
Okay. The first episode sees our good boys Newt and... No.
Gingrich. No.
Wirt
and... Wirt and Greg?
Wirt and Greg.
Yes.
Yeah.
The lads.
Two boys. One of them's dressed like a gnome, maybe? And one of them has a tea kettle on his head. Greg is looking for names for his frog, and they stumble upon the house of a woodcutter. And he seems intimidating and sort of crazy, but he also seems like kind of a nice guy. And then they have to face off against this giant beast. And they're like, well, oh no, we gotta get away. And then they get away. And it turns out the beast was a dog with a turtle in his throat. And then they say, hey, we beat the beast. And the woodcutter's like, that's not the beast, because it's Christopher Lloyd. Everybody's favorite guy. And
Sure.
then they head off to the next adventure. In episode 2, Kyler...
Okay, so their next adventure is they run into the bird that Sam forgot to mention because she's actually a major character.
Yeah, she barely shows up in the first episode, though.
She's there.
She is, and she does play a larger role later on, such as in episode 2. What
Yes.
happened in episode 2?
Well, it turns out in episode 2 that Greg hears a voice calling from the bushes, and it turns out to be the talking bird that they found from episode 1. He frees her, and she offers to take them to a mysterious woman named Adelaide of the Meadow. Pasture. So, flat ground.
Adelaide.
Perhaps with grass. So on the way, Wirt decides not to follow Beatrice, who is the bird, and sees a town nearby. Approaching the town, they trample on a couple of pumpkins and get them stuck on their feet. As they go through the town, they seem to find it mysteriously abandoned, except for one house, which contains a live turkey that is playing dead for some reason.
Another very important character in the
Nice
show.
guy.
A major character, actually. It's a very bird-heavy show, surprisingly.
It is.
But eventually they do hear music, and they find a barn where there seems to be some sort of celebration. A bunch of people dressed as vegetables are having some sort of festival. There's various activities going on. There's dancing. There's bobbing for apples. There's music going on. They are offered to put on vegetables for the festival that's happening.
And everything goes swell.
Yeah, and that's the episode. That's the show. That's the.
But then...
They start to talk about leaving this town, and that seems to shock everyone. Eventually they catch the attention of the leader of this festival, who is a giant pumpkin man by the name of Enoch.
Excellent.
Detail. This is detail heavy.
Enoch charges them for trespassing, destruction of property, and murder, but not really.
And murder. Murder? No, not really. But the other things.
The other stuff, yes, and for their crimes, they're sentenced to a few hours of community service.
Manual labor.
And then it cuts to a delightful little montage of them just sort of digging around and picking corn.
Yeah, they pick corn, they harvest vegetables, they almost eat it, but they are watched carefully.
Another important moment by an important character.
Yes,
Lest he not forget.
What's the big twist at the end?
Okay, so the big twist at the end is their last bit of manual labor is they're digging two large holes that could easily serve as graves for them. They become convinced that the townsfolk are planning on murdering them and using their own labor to bury them. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine?
I can.
Beatrice frees them by picking their locks with her tiny bird feet, and it is revealed that, in fact, what they are doing is digging up skeletons, which then proceed to rise from their graves, don pumpkins, and continue the festivities.
It turns out they're all skeletons.
They're all simply skeletons wearing vegetables. It's far less creepy than murder.
Sure, you didn't prepare. That was a lot of detail, and you remembered everything.
You asked me to summarize my favorite episode.
That's true. We all wind up getting like our favorite episodes with this order. But before we proceed, I guess it is going to take a while to go through every single episode like this. So, real quick, what's our opinion of the show? Do we like it?
What do you mean, do we like it?
It's aight.
The hell out of here.
Of course.
Who invited this guy?
You two.
Damn it. Let's all get out of here. We all fucked up.
I like the show. Do you like the show?
I actually love the
We
show.
all love this show. It's so wonderful. It's got this incredibly cozy, but also horrifying, but also nostalgic, but also completely new kind of vibe. You know, it's just everything at once.
It's like my bed.
Yeah. It's like if someone asked, what are all the things that you like? And I said all of them, and they were like, there's already a show about that. Stupid.
Yeah. 10 years in the making, dude.
Yeah.
It's the longest produced show ever, I swear.
Yeah. Do you want to hit us with a couple fun facts before you get into your episode, Esperanza? Just like or we can jump right into your episode. We all love the show. We're going to keep talking about each episode. And then
Episode 2. 3.
Episode 3. Episode 3 is about, so the Bluebird and Wirt and Gregor, they're all walking after they got out of the town. And they're, the world's a miserable place. And Greg's like, I gotta make the world a better place. And he happens upon a schoolhouse where there's a lady and her father's funding a school for her to teach animals how to read and write. And there's a gorilla on the loose.
It is the funniest. It's the funniest episode by far.
It's hilarious.
It's great.
Every time that something's going on, and there's that gorilla on the loose as well.
And it just shows up sometimes and just chases them around.
The conflicts are all so weirdly simple, but also everyone takes them so seriously, and then it just kind of resolves itself. But go on.
It's very funny. So the dad comes and he's like, I didn't fund the school so you could teach animals how to play instruments, so he takes all their instruments away, and then he tries to sell them because he's secretly not making enough money to fund the school anymore. And then they steal his instruments while he's asleep, and then they make a charity band thing.
It's a benefit concert.
A benefit concert for the school.
They play the famous song "Potatoes and Molasses."
Yeah, and then at the end,
The
the moral
second
of the
time in the
story
episode.
is, I guess the world really is as sweet as potatoes and molasses. And that's how you sum up an episode in
What's
very
the
short
gorilla?
time.
The gorilla!
What about the gorilla? Is just like some guy. I'm just kidding.
It's not just some guy.
It's not just some guy.
There's a song about him, excuse me.
The school teacher has a long-lost romance with the guy named Jimmy, and she thinks that he left her, but really he's the gorilla on the loose. And he joined the circus in the suit so he can go and buy her that wedding ring. But then he got stuck in the suit.
Well, once I got in that suit, everyone was just so plumb afraid of me.
Everyone was so doggone scared of me.
They couldn't let me out.
Yeah. The fun fact about it is, because you don't hear the whole song that she sings about her forlornness in the episode, but it goes all the way from A to Z and also through the numbers 1 and 10.
Are you familiar with this song, Esperanza?
No, Sam. Not at all. But it's
knows every word.
So at the end of the song, it's revealed that Jimmy has only been gone for 3 days. She's so sad and lovelorn. And
Everyone's life seems to be so simple that the smallest thing is just so dramatic.
It's hilarious.
So fantastic.
She's like, oh, only 3 days he's been gone, but it feels like 8.
Yeah.
And that's how she's telling the numbers at the end of the song. It's funny. That's the fun fact.
Episode 4, it takes place in a tavern, and our trio of heroes, find their way on a sort of tavern by the side of the road. Most of the episodes involve just a building in the forest, because the whole journey is them finding their way through the forest to get back home because they got lost somehow, some way. We find out later, but...
What a good summary of the show.
Trying, use as few words as possible, I suppose. We could learn more about that man who tried to stop them from eating the corn that one time.
Oh,
but
man, that guy that's chopped them.
Nice guy.
But I
can't believe he was the main villain. Oh, sorry.
Spoilers. We're not supposed to spoil it until halfway through. They stumble upon a tavern and they meet a whole cast of wonderful characters who all are defined by their place in the world, their society. Like there's the master and the apprentice, there's the barkeeper, and there's the tailor and the cake maker, and they all have little songs that they sing. And they have the highwayman.
I'm the highwayman.
The highwayman. And he has some of the most bizarre animation in the short. It's very kind of rotoscope, but also very warped and distorted and confusing. All the songs are kind of hard to understand because they're all singing in these very old-timey accents.
It's so awesome.
It's wonderful.
The vibes.
It's great.
It's so much of the show is reference to old animation eras of classic golden era animation, and this is a very Fleischer heavy episode, which I really appreciate. Just all the characters are oh yes, I do it. I don't know, it's just the sort of stuff you'd see. But they sort of had a little moment where Wirt realizes that he does have kind of a purpose, even though he feels kind of aimless and lost. This whole journey he's kind of trying to find himself, and in this episode all the people are hearing his situation oh, you're the pilgrim. Well, first they think he's the young lover, and they try and get him to sing a love song, and he has no idea how to sing a love song. But
he mentions Adelaide, and they think, oh, that must be the girl that you're planning on marrying.
oh, it's a girl you're looking for.
It's yes, but no, but...
Yeah. But he takes on the identity of a pilgrim because they give him that kind of title, and he embraces it. It's something that he can kind of latch onto, and he uses that newfound confidence. Sorry, everybody. Esperanza just sneezed.
It's a wind chime, Sam.
Take a sneeze break.
Oh yeah, I forgot. That was the sneeze chimes we got outside. But
it's weird how they don't make noise in the wind. You just have to sneeze on them.
It's special order. But they, by the end of it, Wirt and his newfound confidence saves Beatrice, the bluebird, when she goes off to try and find help from the woodsman. And they, they take a horse, a talking horse, whose name is Jeff, right? Fred. Right, just some guy.
It's a guy.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Fuck.
It's not important. We don't stick around with Fred for long, but we'll hear all about that in the next episode.
Oh, yes. Which I get to summarize.
Yeah.
So the next episode finds ourselves in the lofty estate of one Mr. Endicott, who is a tea mogul who has struck it big, but also may have struck it mad.
Now that's how you summarize an episode.
Damn right.
That's the plot summary. That's what you get in the TV guide.
So either way, it's revealed that they are trying to get money for a ferry, and that Wirt and Greg are pretending to be Mr. Endicott's nephews. They are shown around the mansion, and they learn that Mr. Endicott has at one point stumbled among a forgotten part of his mansion where he found a portrait of a woman, grew obsessed with her, and may or may not have seen her ghost.
Ooh, tell us more.
Meanwhile, Beatrice and Fred the horse are very intent on stealing from him, even though it's revealed that they only need 2 cents.
There's this great line where Wirt is Beatrice is trying to talk Wirt into stealing. She's like, you already stole the horse. And he's like, no, Fred's a talking horse. He can do what he wants. And then cuts to Fred and he's like, I want to steal.
Steal things.
Yes.
And they just get really into the idea of just breaking everything and finding
Stealing shit.
Yes.
They need 2 cents for the ferry. But that's all. And this guy's got a lot of wealth.
Eventually, Greg manages to lead Mr. Endicott away, which leaves Beatrice and Wirt alone in the parlor. Mm. Fred is also there, and they begin
Fred
looking
goes with
for
Endicott and Greg. Remember?
Yeah.
Not initially, right?
Not initially, but then he does wind up going.
He goes with them to get the painting.
Yeah, they do.
Beatrice
wind up
says, "Why don't you go with them?"
Yes.
Eventually, Fred accuses the man of being a murderer.
Before that,
anyway,
Beatrice and Wirt get locked in a wardrobe, and in it they find a back panel that is loose and reveal a secret entrance into a fireplace, which leads into another parlor, which has a strangely different architectural style. I believe it's the French Rococo style, which is a sharp contrast to Mr. Endicott's typical Georgian style.
See, you got all these names and all these terms.
I'm
You're
taking
doing-
them right from the show that we just watched.
you're doing a great job of keeping that. Like, I had to like write down all the characters in Spirited Away.
That is
in that episode. There's this great little moment with them in the closet, in the wardrobe, where they're sort of like giving Wirt room to sort of talk about himself. It's like, oh, maybe he's not just some dweeby little guy.
Yes.
That's
Oh,
cool.
also, basically, Wirt and Beatrice decide to exchange their dark secrets. Beatrice reveals that she... Is it here that she reveals that she used to be human? Or am I spoiling the crap out
Yeah.
of this?
She accidentally kind of mentions that she used to be human, and
Yes.
then he pushes her on it.
Yes, and she pushes her on it, and she reveals that not only did she used to be human, but her entire family used to be human and were turned into bluebirds. She claims it's because she threw a rock at a bluebird, and they were all cursed as a result. Meanwhile, Wirt reveals that his secret was that he likes a girl.
Women?
It's
Yeah.
a very, like... Wirt is such a
Liking women?
funny high
What a
school,
dark
like...
secret.
He's so self-conscious about everything, and it's very, true to life, I think, in a way.
What? I'm just kidding.
Meanwhile, with Greg and Mr. Endicott, they do eventually stumble upon the portrait of the woman. Eventually, they hear a noise from behind them, and they turn around to see an image of this woman. Mr. Endicott sees her and immediately faints. The image of this woman also faints. I should probably stop saying image because it's literally just a woman.
Twist! It's a woman!
Ah, yuck. Damn it. So many women. I'm just kidding.
Every episode, Esperanza finds a way to have a screed against women.
What?
There's only one in this one.
Oh, God.
Oh, I guess Beatrice is there too.
No, I mean every episode of the podcast.
Oh.
You gotta watch it. You gotta listen.
Well,
You have to
okay,
listen to
so
all of
what?
them.
You're getting that hot gossip.
What animated movie is just like a total sausage fest?
Well, Ratatouille
Sausage
has a lot of
party?
sausage in it.
You guys can do sausage party. I'm not going to be here.
All right.
Refuse to
I don't
watch
think we're
that
gonna
film.
watch Sausage Party. It's not important. Anyway.
That's not art.
Going on with this description of the episode, it's revealed that the woman who they see is in fact a rival tea mogul named Mrs. Gray. Mr. Endicott and Mrs. Gray immediately hit it off and decide to combine their tea empires.
They were just destined to love each other.
Oh, and the point is that their mansions were both so huge that they just kind of coalesced into each other.
It's one of the many just like very dreamlike scenarios of like, oh, here's the explanations. Like that doesn't make any sense, but
That's fucking
that's just the
dumb.
way things are
And
here.
that's how it goes. Fred, meanwhile, has some sort of crisis that makes him not want to steal anymore. I think it was him being convinced that there was a ghost.
Yeah, he has a
Yeah.
little like come to faith moment where he's like, "I'll get a real job, I swear."
So he stays behind. God
He
bless him.
stays behind to be their tea horse.
Tea
We get-
horse.
we
An
get him-
official tea horse.
He was an official tea horse, yeah.
Is that like a thing?
No, I don't know.
I feel like that must. I feel like
well, you
there's a
have the
pun
milkman, you have the tea horse.
there. Yeah, I guess so. I feel like there's some pun that I don't know that has something to do with him being a tea horse. I don't know. Then of course we get the titular episode. It's
They
not
say the line. They say the line in that episode.
the next one.
Which one's the next one? Sorry.
It's the one on the ferry with
It's
the frogs.
ferry.
Oh, with
They
the
finally
ferry,
got
with
the
the-
money.
With the frog. Okay, so they
They don't.
didn't get the money. They sneak
yeah.
onto the ferry.
The episode ends with a
Well,
great line.
sort of.
The previous episode ends with this great line from Greg where he just takes the 2 cents that the T-Mobiles both gave him, which is what they came to the house
Really
to
sounded like
get.
you just said the T-Mobiles.
The T-Mobiles, yeah. He got a great deal from T-Mobile and saved 2 whole cents. But the T-Mobiles both gave him like 1 cent each, which is all they needed to get on the ferry. But he tossed him down a well, and Word is like, "What did you do that for?" And he's like, "He was wrong about me. I ain't got no sense at all."
But yeah, he's like, Mr. Endicott pegged me all
He
wrong.
pegged me all wrong.
I got no sense.
Greg is like the funniest child character in any
There's-
show. Every other line from him, he's either
It's
just
so
like
good. He's like either reciting like poetry or
he's
like,
incredibly sweet and sincere and like just not paying attention at all. Like there's so many moments where he's just like says okay and then does something completely opposite of what he said. Like
Well, the entire thing with the third episode was he was also trying to prove to Beatrice that he wasn't a pushover by being a total
Oh,
pushover.
he's
Word.
talking about Greg.
did I say Word?
Sam's talking about Greg.
I
You're
am
talking about
totally talking about Word.
That's fine.
And I'm just the middleman.
Kind of literally, you're sitting between us.
Good information for the podcast.
Thanks,
They can't
Russell
see.
Brand,
They
if you're
gotta. We
listening.
gotta paint a word picture of our surroundings.
I don't know that we do.
I have a stuffed pig.
Well,
Perhaps it's a cow. I'm doing a great
I think
job
it's
so
an
far.
axolotl. It's not important.
It's pink.
So anyway.
So, Oh, yeah. So Wirt's like this very classic kind of teenage, like, self-conscious boy who's like, oh, I don't know where I belong in this world. He recites poetry to himself. But Greg is just, like, completely just not...
Greg is great.
He has no sense of tension for any of the very dramatic scenes that he's in.
Throughout the entire series, including, like, the climax, it's fantastic.
Yeah, when he's talking to the villain and everything. He's just like, haha, I have an idea.
It's a honeycomb, golden honey. But we'll get to that.
We'll get to that.
So
anyway, so they didn't get the sense because Greg's got no sense at all.
Yeah, no sense at all.
And so they have to sneak onto the ferry so they can get to Adelaide. And then he's like, oh, our pet frog, George Washington, he's naked. All the other frogs on the boat that's filled with frogs are well clothed.
Yeah. For whatever reason, this boat is just covered in well-dressed frogs.
Yes.
Also, the frog that they're carrying with them changes names every episode.
Oh,
so.
Yeah, the whole
fun.
That's like a running motif or
Yeah.
like a mission for Greg is he has to find the right name for a frog. Just because it's just something that he decided he wanted to do at the beginning of the adventure, and he kept doing it throughout.
Well, who advised them to name the frog properly? It was
the woodcutter.
the woodsman, yes.
Oh,
so
yeah.
give that frog a proper name.
But he was still giving him a name before he met the woodsman.
Yes.
But the woodsman just confirmed, like, that's what you need to do, boy. Make sure that frog has a proper name.
Name this man.
Give this man a name.
I really don't do anything in life until a woodsman tells me.
It's a fair policy to follow. You're not going to get much done.
But anyway, so George Washington, the frog, is naked, and they're like, he's got to have some clothes. He needs to be a proper man. But then they're kind of getting chased around because they didn't pay for the ferry. And so then they find some clothes in a closet, and then they go and they join the band, disguised as
a very tall frog.
Really tall frog, and also a drum, because Greg's a drum.
Greg just, like, his eyes just poke out of the drum. It's like,
it's very silly.
beat me in the face. I'm a drum.
Drum me in the face.
I said act natural. It is natural. I'm a drum.
Drum me. That's very silly. And then they start singing for the crowd.
Yeah, George Washington suddenly has a beautiful voice.
Yeah, but then the bassoon player falls off the boat. How does he fall off the boat?
They just knock into him.
Yeah,
he just falls off the boat. And then he's like, oh no, bassoon player. And all the frogs are really pissed about it. Because frogs really like bassoons. It's canon. Yeah. And then...
I think it's just biology.
And then Wirt plays the bassoon. And everyone's like, and he's actually pretty good at it. And, he's discovering himself or whatever. And then the frog gets a record contract with the other frogs. And they all hibernate in the mud together. What a treat.
But then... This is also the episode where we meet Adelaide.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so they go to sleep after that. And then Beatrice sneaks off to meet Adelaide. And she's kind of like in a weird mood the whole time. The whole episode at the beginning, because she's like, oh, maybe we should just turn the boat around. Or maybe we should just get off the boat. Maybe we should get kicked off because we shouldn't go to Adelaide anymore. And so she flies off in the middle of the night to talk to Adelaide. And it turns out that Adelaide is like, she's working for her because she needs the scissors to turn her family back to be humans.
Yeah. Adelaide has these magic scissors which will clip off her wings and turn her human again.
Yeah, and then Adelaide, in return, she was going to give Adelaide a child servant.
Yes. I need a child servant.
I need a big, strong child servant.
She's like, well, you can turn me back into a human. And she's like, no, I want a strong child. Anyway, it's weird. But, and then Wirt follows her, and they find out what the plan was, and they feel super betrayed. Oh, and then they open the window, and apparently Adelaide's, like, allergic to the outside. So she melts away and then they separate. They go their separate ways.
In the kind of chaos of it all, Wirt thinks that Beatrice betrayed him, and they run away with the scissors.
Which was her original plan, to be fair.
I really want something I didn't notice the first couple times I watched through the whole series, but I noticed it this time was every line that Beatrice has in this episode could be read as either her coming to appreciate Wirt and Greg more, or revealing that she's trying to get them sabotaged because she doesn't want to go through with their plan. Early on, they're like, well, you don't really want to go, like, do you really need to go home? Like, all this stuff where it's like, it sounds, if you haven't watched the show before, it's like, oh, I guess she's really becoming, like, fond of them and wants to, like, spend more time with them and isn't, like, keeping up that same front. But in reality, it's because she knows that if they succeed by going to Adelaide, she's going to lose them. They're going to be, like...
Yeah, Adelaide threatens to, like, stuff their heads with wool to make them mindless servants.
There's so much great, like, horrifying, very classic fantasy, like, medieval...
Oh, it's like Grimm's fairy tales,
Yeah, just like that terrible imagery of, like, oh, yes, I will pluck your eyes out.
Fun fact.
Oh, yeah?
A fun fact about it is that in the original story that Pat McHale wrote, they were gonna make her have a bunch of sheep, and the sheep were gonna turn out to be. That's like how she got her wool from her yarn and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
From like sheep that she was having some servant care for, or something like that. But then it was gonna be revealed that all the sheep were like lost children in the woods that she had turned into sheep, so she could get wool from them.
What's with everyone wanting these lost children? Sorry.
Just
more spoilers.
I mean,
but then they decided not to do that because they were like, what do we do with a bunch of like lost children when they get turned back into humans? Like, that's too many characters to reveal in the show and all that.
And the show, like the miniseries, was originally going to be like 20 episodes or something
18,
like that.
Yeah.
18. And they cut it down to 10 because it was a big endeavor.
Damn, I wish it was 18.
Yeah, it's just...
It's a good length the way it is, though, honestly.
It does. It is like the fact that it's trimmed the way it does. It does feel kind of like a very cohesive little package. Maybe it wouldn't...
Hence the fact that we could just sit down and watch the whole dang thing.
Yeah.
In one go.
I really like how they make it... It's very intentional with every kind of interaction with Beatrice in this episode to kind of like lead new viewers to think like, she's becoming more friendly, but like not quite revealing the betrayal, even though it's like you can maybe pick up on it if you're thinking of like, why would Beatrice want to help these people if she doesn't like them at all?
Yeah.
What if she's got some secret motive that she also mentions in one of the earlier episodes? I thought it was cool. And we get frog songs and frog police chasing people around on a boat.
Great.
All these fun little moments. They give George Washington his socks.
He's Benjamin Franklin by the end of the episode.
Yes. By the end, Wirt and Greg and Benjamin Franklin head back off into the wilderness, and Beatrice is like left by herself. So the group has been separated again, leading us right into episode 8 or 7. Episode 7.
Fair. Keep track of it. You're on this one.
I don't know. It's the episode with Granny Whispers. Auntie Whispers. Goddamn, muting your names. You goddamn superhuman mutant.
Again, we did just watch it.
Yeah, I know, but there was a lot of stuff going on. I got a lot
I've
on my
also
mind.
seen the series less than you guys.
Yeah, I know. I don't have an excuse.
Hey, you don't have to tell me anything, bro.
But Auntie Whispers and Lorna, I think, right? Lorna?
I think it was Lorna.
It's Lorna.
Okay, we'll call her Lorna. I think
Promise
it's Lana.
you.
Let's
but
just
I'll
call
go
her
with
Bill.
Lorna. We'll call
Or
her.
not. We'll call her Lorna.
So,
My sweet little. Dude, I promise.
Greg and Wirt stumble onto a little cabin, again, just sort of an isolated building in the woods, and it's home to a little girl named Lorna and her very menacing, massive, like, just this huge...
She's large.
Like, just massive... It
The one that's at least 60% head.
It's a lot of head. Auntie Whispers is mostly a face with a just like lumbering body behind it. It actually I wonder if it's kind of like a reference to
Don't say it.
Yubaba.
Say it. I
From
was
Spirited
thinking the
Away.
exact same
maybe.
thing,
Yeah.
bro.
It's a very similar kind of like
It's a
body
very
proportion.
As soon as she walked in there, I was like, oh, that
Yeah.
kind of reminds me of Spirited Away, dude.
But this is like a very like fairy tale kind of story of there's this sinister elderly person who's keeping this child captive in her house, and there's all these rules, and she's got a bell that forces her to like obey her every wish. And we also see, this is, I guess, I don't know if this is like the origin of the turtles, but this is like where we see all the turtles that we've been kind of seeing throughout the episodes up to this point. These little black turtles that seem to show up.
The one
wherever.
that corrupted the dog to the point of being like this like snarling werewolf-like beast.
And there's like an part in episode 3 where the little raccoon just like spots one and like tosses it into the lake. It's like, oh, it's nothing, but also what if it's something? It's like a fun little bit of foreshadowing. They manage to sneak into the house and evade Auntie Whispers, and they decide to help Lorna with her chores so that she can escape before Auntie Whispers wakes up, because that way, you know, she won't have control over anyone more, because she needs to ring the bell in order to have control over Lorna. And we think, oh no, Auntie Whispers is going to eat them if she finds them. But it turns out Auntie Whispers was trying to protect them from Lorna because she's got an evil spirit that makes her eat people. And so they have to run away from Lorna, and they, in the process, manage to sneak away the bell because Ben Franklin, or whatever his name is at this point, eats it. And so...
Dr. Cucumber.
Dr. Cucumbers,
Oh
that's
my
it.
god, it's Dr. Cucumber.
And so Greg shakes Dr. Cucumbers above his head, and they're able to compel the spirit to leave her body so that she's, you know, pure again, like a person, and not a demon. And Auntie Whispers comes by, and she's like, oh, Lorna, finally you're free. And then there's this weird little exchange where they're like, well, now that you're cured, you don't need me anymore. And Laura's like, oh, Auntie whispers, but you're my family. And it's like, oh, I guess they did love each other, even though it seemed like a weird thing. And I had kind of a hot take about this particular little relationship.
Crisis.
I mean, it's fine. It's a fairy tale. It's a sweet ending for it, but it is a little weird that Annie Whispers had the power this entire time to banish the spirit, and she didn't. And she mentions after the spirit is banished, oh, well, I guess you don't need me anymore. And it's like, so you were kind of like keeping her under the control of this demon so that she would feel the need, like she would feel, I don't know, like she needs you, that kind of thing. It just doesn't seem like the best basis for a healthy relationship. But what do I know?
It's portrayed as pretty sweet by the end of it.
Oh yeah, it's meant to be like sweet, and I accept that. But it is a little suspect, that particular power dynamic they have between those two. But the episode ends, and they just set off on their way again. And at this point, Wirt is in a bit of a melancholic state. He doesn't seem to know what to do.
So episode 8 begins with Wirt being sad.
Yeah.
They're becoming increasingly frustrated both by the betrayal of Beatrice and the fact that they just really do not know where they're going anymore. And Wirt essentially decides to, in sort of like a frustrated huff, make Greg the leader and go to sleep.
He gives up. He doesn't really care.
Yeah, he gives up.
He pulls the sad boy hours.
He pulls his classic teenage boy sad boy hours.
Oh, it's so sad boy. But either way, he sort of like mentions to Greg that I guess you're the leader now. I don't really care.
Greg takes it very seriously.
Greg takes it very seriously, and he decides to come up with a plan by wishing upon a star for a dream to give him a plan.
He's so cute.
This is like my favorite part of the show.
Oh yeah, so he grabs a bunch of leaves. He puts them on Wirt like a blanket. He puts them on himself, and does the frog have a different name at this point? Okay, fine. Dr. Cucumber, as he's most recently been known, grabs one little leaf and puts it on himself.
He's so cute.
There's so much adorable little imagery. Like all the characters move in such like ooh little,
it's very cute. Ways. So most of this episode takes place in Wirt's dream. A bunch of flying children's heads, some of which have birds on top of them.
They're cherubs. It's a very bizarre interpretation.
They're most of a cherub.
They're some segment of a cherub.
About at least 40% of a cherub. Come down and surround Greg, and Greg is whisked off to this sort of carriage pulled by a donkey that flies him into the clouds. And as he's making a little cloud beard, as one would make a bubble beard in a bubble bath.
Another important moment that we need to include in the recap.
He is whisked off to the Cloud Kingdom?
It's Cloud City.
Cloud City is what it's called.
Come on, it's Cloud City.
It's Cloud City.
But
it's Cloud City.
Isn't that the name of the place in Star Wars?
It's the exact same place in Star Wars. Don't you remember when they meet Lando Calrissian?
You got a point.
Okay, either way. So they meet a bunch of
connected universes.
Fun characters, including Lando Calrissian. And
it's really funny. Thanks for our viewers.
I'm gonna say it a few more times just to try to point out.
I can edit it out.
I have no power here.
Nobody has any power here.
Except for you, Mr. Editor Man.
Anyway.
What happens? The weird animals in the street.
Okay, so they find a bunch of... Greg finds about at least 3 different welcoming committees and a whole slew of, like...
There's these really lame little musical numbers of these welcoming committees. And just... Here to welcome thee.
So it's like a bunch of like little like winged animals and children, and they all like are going around, and they Greg mentions his trouble, like that he's trying to like become a better leader, and they eventually are just like, why don't you lead us in a song?
Everything is nice and fine all the time. I won't sing anymore.
Oh, please.
No.
I'm kidding.
It's a bunch of very wonderful, out-of-key, like, little songs.
Hilarious.
Yeah, so at one point, Greg is sort of leading this and being tossed around in this, like, cute little montage of, like, fun things happening around Cloud City. And eventually he ends up stuck in a pig's tuba.
Mm-hmm.
Sousaphone, I'm sorry.
Jeez.
He's getting all caught up in the... It's like a maze and you're going down every dead end.
So either way...
Pig's tuba.
Either way, In an attempt to continue this song, this pig blows him out of the sousaphone
Yeah.
Classic
and-
cartoon shenanigans.
Yes,
and onto a gate that says, "Do not open."
What comes out of the gate, Kyler?
The old north wind.
Old North
Yes,
Wind.
With one of the best
Yes.
musical numbers in this show, which is a tough contender.
Now, this Old North Wind happens to be coinciding with a bit of a cold wind
Yes.
overtaking the boys in real life.
Absolutely.
Is the dream even real, or is it a dream?
Who's to say for sure?
What is real, man?
So the old north wind begins terrorizing Cloud City and making everyone sort of run around, and they try to fight him with a bunch of little cannons, but he's able to blow away the cannonballs and everything. Eventually, Greg guides him into a tussle inside of a house and somehow manages to bottle.
Finds the Old North Wind's one weakness, which is being contained.
Yes. Eventually, the Queen of Cloud City comes down and offers Greg one wish. Greg, of course, wishes to go home, and the Queen says, "Absolutely, I can make that happen." And Greg sort of mentions that, "Oh, Wirt's going to be so happy to go home." The Queen looks at him and says, I'm sorry, Wirt can't come with you. He's already too far gone," and it shows back on the ground. Wirt has Edelwood growing around him.
The trees are growing around him and kind of trapping him.
Did we mention that Edelwood is what the woodsman is collecting and squeezes oil out of this particular kind of wood to keep his lantern lit?
That's sort of like this running sort of side story going on, is seeing the woodsman trying to like follow the children to protect them, but also he's cutting down the trees to like grind up into this oil, which he uses to keep his lantern lit. And
did we even mention the Beast at this point?
Well,
the Beast has been there.
We mentioned it briefly. The Beast is very much another background character. Like,
he's not really important.
Yeah, whenever
Much
he's
less
around,
important than the Corn Man.
It's important we remember that corn pumpkin man. But the Beast is also his presence is punctuated with very low operatic singing. It's very
It's great, honestly.
yeah. It's a very interesting like calling card for your big bad enemy.
I think it's fantastic.
Of course.
And
every weird thing about this show is
the Beast is, I mean, it's such an effective villain because he's always just like this like silhouetted figure in like this tattered flowing robe with these massive antler like horns growing at the side with just the two
white eyes,
glowing eyes. It's
super cool.
It's cool as hell.
But how does this episode end?
Okay, so this episode ends with eventually Greg realizing that he can't use his wish to get home. He whispers his wish to the Queen of the Clouds. And eventually Wirt wakes up and finds...
Greg takes Wirt's place. Like, Greg wishes to, like, take the place of Wirt so that Wirt can escape the Edel tree.
Yes. And eventually Wirt wakes up and manages to peel the Edelwood off of him, only to find Greg missing.
Greg walks off with the Beast in hand.
Yes.
Very ominous.
It's incredibly ominous. Taking us into episode 9.
Well, the episode ends with Wirt tries to chase after them, falls into the ice, and is saved by a fish.
A fishing fish.
A fishing
and
fish.
Beatrice is there.
And Beatrice is
what
there.
What a treat.
Yeah.
What a treat for them.
So then he wakes up. He wakes up in a tree, and it's Beatrice's whole family, and they convince him to eat dirt and whatnot.
Hold on.
This is still episode 8, right?
Yes, this is the end of
this is still
8.
episode 8.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't.
Oh, am I shirking my responsibilities?
Yeah.
I'm totally shirking my
Oh
responsibilities.
God. You didn't mention the fact that he eats dirt.
He does eat
There's
dirt.
dirt.
They offer him dirt.
There's dirt to be had.
Kyler, I don't know. I don't know
I'm
about
starting to
this.
think we shouldn't pay you for this.
Yeah, I'm starting to think that, I might be convinced to not pay you for this. I had a whole, 401k planned out.
Oh, no.
With the medical plan, too.
Yeah, and I don't even have, money to do that. So
I don't even have my own insurance.
it would have been a very generous move on
Are
my
you even
part.
gonna, match the contribution to any degree?
It's not important. The important thing is,
There's dirt.
That's what happens. He wakes up in Beatrice's family's house, but Beatrice is nowhere to be found, and...
Beatrice's mom tries to feed him dirt. And then he...
Twice.
Successfully. Well, she successfully.
Yeah,
It's another
Wirt resolves to
cute little
go find Greg, so he grabs Dr. Cucumber and who is also in this house,
Yeah.
and goes out into this blizzard to find Greg.
It is another cute little moment where the mom tries to get him to eat dirt, which is a very weird, funny thing for birds to do to people.
And he just like does.
Yeah, at first he's like, ugh, but then she says, eat more dirt. And he just like very sincerely takes a spoonful and like, thank you. And then he just runs
eats
off.
the dirt.
Yeah, it's great.
Gotta get nutrients.
That's
If
important.
it's good enough for plants, it's good enough for work.
Which leads us right into episode 9.
And so...
Like
No, is that
Very
the episode
differently.
that starts in the world?
It is the episode that starts in the world.
Episode 9?
Second to last episode.
Boys?
Do you not believe?
I believe it.
What
I
other
can't-
episode would it be?
Okay, so this is the crazy one. So we open up on probably like a, I don't know, late 80s, early 90s
I don't
type of
know
town.
what time period it's supposed to be.
Pretty
I
timeless,
think
but
it's
there
like
are
early
cassette
80s.
tapes.
Yeah, well, nobody else has a cassette player.
Oh,
That's a
so
good
maybe
point.
it's like early 90s.
It could be because cassette players are outdated, or because just not everyone has one.
Yeah,
So it's a little vague.
yeah. There's a vague time frame.
Yeah.
But it's like more modern than it's been.
Definitely. The whole story's been in this like bizarre fantasy fairy tale land, and suddenly it's like
Slash
It
Victorian era.
is like
small town Americana, football stadium, like it's a very modernized
Mhm.
location.
Yeah.
so. How does
The
this
music's all like guitar riffs and all that stuff.
It's cool.
Yeah.
And so we open up on Word, and he's in his house, and he's making a mixtape for Sarah, who we don't know who that is yet, but except for we do.
He's mentioned her at least once, right?
He
That's
mentioned
why
a
it's-
girl.
Yeah.
Was that in the Anticott episode?
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks, Skyler. So he's making a mixtape for her, and he's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do it. He starts, like, almost breaking it, but then he puts it back together, and he's like, alright, fine, I'll give it to her. And then he's like, oh, but it's Halloween, I have to have a costume, so he just wrestles around in some boxes, and he finds himself a little silly costume.
Yeah, we learn why he's dressed the way he is, because
Yeah.
it's never addressed why Greg has a little tea kettle on his head and Wirt just has like a gnome hat and a weird little coat.
Yeah, he has, like, a little cone hat, and he's got a Civil War style coat on,
Yeah.
which is fun. Anyway, so then he goes to the football stadium to find Sarah, or to go find her and give her the tape. And then he runs into Greg, and then Greg is like, oh, can I see your tape? And then he runs off with it, and he's like, I'll give it to her for you. And then they bump into Sarah's, like, fun high school friends, and they're
Yeah.
like, this is so silly. I'm an egg.
All the great thing about it is like all the high schoolers are so like kind of goofy and dorky,
Yeah.
but Wirt is just so self-conscious around them. He's just so convinced that they're so cool and he's so lame.
Yeah, and they're like, oh yeah, we'll give it to her for you. And then he's just like, oh no, like, give it back,
Everything's so serious for
Yeah.
for
And
Wirt.
so
So
he's
Sarah's-
convinced that Greg's ruining
Sarah's
his
the
life.
mascot, by the way. She's like dressed as up to this point, she's dressed as like a duck or something.
A
like that.
bee. What?
A bee. She's
Is
a
it
bee.
Yeah, it's a bee. Anyway,
Ducks and bees are very similar.
then they're like, oh no, we didn't get the tape back, so now they have to.
Wirt wants to give her the tape, but he's so embarrassed about what he has on the tape, so he doesn't know what to do.
Yeah,
Which, by the way, you can listen to this tape. They made it.
yeah, they did make
Its
it.
entirety.
Really?
Yeah.
Yep.
You can
I
listen
don't
to
know
the
that I
mixtape.
need to listen to it, but I still
Well, you don't
kinda
want
to.
clarinet music and poetry?
Wirt's poetry?
Yeah.
Yes.
The want of the odious.
Well, they got Elijah Wood to do the whole
I
time.
mean, sure.
So they have to go to the party to get back a tape, but they weren't invited to the party, so they can't go in. But they just go in anyway.
They were totally
As a
invited
treat.
to this party.
It's one of the many instances of like, oh no, there's a conflict. Well, whatever. We're all just sort of living our lives.
That's funny. So yeah, and then they go in the party, and then Sarah's like, "Oh, we're all going to the graveyard later. Do you want to come? Please come, because I am absolutely
Sarah gives a
giving you signals right now."
very clear vibes of like, yeah, I'd like to spend time with you, and we're like, oh no, I couldn't do that.
Yeah. And then we get the Jason Funderburker reveal, and Jason Funderburker's this fucking just lame ass dude. He's so lame.
Hey, Sarah.
He's so lame and actually purposefully modeled after the creator of the show.
Of course.
Fun fact. And then yeah, she's like, please come to the graveyard, and he's like, oh, but I can't compete with Jason Funderburker.
He keeps building up Jason Thunderburger throughout the entire series.
Yeah, he's just convinced that this other guy is like way better than him and is gonna get the girl that he wants.
It's
Even
just, like,
though
it's complete projection. Like
Yeah.
there's no reality to any of his weird phobias about other people. It's just
very
like
funny. And
he just
everyone
caught his
likes
own
him
head.
too.
Yeah, everyone likes
They're
him.
like, hey, how's it going? He's
like,
"Ah."
like they break into that party that he wasn't invited to, and they're like, "Hey, Wirt's here."
Yeah, he's like, okay, guys, I'll see you later.
Yeah.
It's very silly.
Yeah.
So they end up at the graveyard, and he's all scared to go and hang out with him, I guess. But then the cops show up, and they're like, oh, what is this, some sort of witches gathering?
Yeah, there's this running joke where the police of the town keep, like, blaring their little horns and be like, what are you doing, you couple of robbers? Just kidding, happy Halloween.
Yeah, so
It's like they're not taking anything seriously, and then people are like, oh, it's the cops, run! The cops are like, no, just joking. Please, get down.
Yeah, then he's like, wait, stop, you guys are gonna trip or something. And he, like, keeps following them, and then Wirt and Greg climb up on a wall.
A wall.
A wall.
What kind of wall?
I don't know what...
Would you consider a graveyard to be sort of a garden of
wall?
corpses?
Oh, okay.
If you do, that might construe this as sort of a garden wall, almost.
How do they proceed in regards to the wall?
So they're on the wall,
It's
and
the
the
garden
cop's
wall.
like, come back down on this, come back down. And then he sees Jason Funderburger and Sarah talking, and he gets all upset. And then he kind of just is like, this is how it ends. And he flips over and goes down the opposite side of the wall.
Yeah.
Also, at one point, Jason does try to make a move on Sarah, and she's just like
Yeah,
not
she's
having
totally
it
not
at all.
interested. It's great.
But, you know, Wirt still thinks like, oh, everyone loves Jason Thunderburger. Like,
Wonderful.
you can stop holding my hand now, Jason.
Yeah. And then the other chick's like, you can hold my hand, Jason. That's fine.
I don't even care, Jason.
It's funny. But then they almost get hit by a train, and they tumble down a hill, and they fall into the water.
And then we reopen on episode 10.
Yeah.
And it's like, suddenly it's
They
like,
find
wait a
the
second.
frog.
Was any of this even real? Was the dream a dream, or was the adventure a dream, or was reality a dream? But we've got a snowstorm to contend with. So Beatrice is on her way, and she sees Greg
She hits him in the face.
Yeah, she just sort of bumps into him and flies off because there's a huge snowstorm. But Greg is acquiring these little, like, trinkets for the beast. And it's like, did you bring the golden comb? It's like, golden honeycomb, ha ha! And I brought a spider web on a stick.
It's silver thread.
Yeah. And it's like, it sounds like it's supposed to come from like, yes, you must find the silver thread. And it's like all this mystical stuff. And he's like, I found a spider web. It's just like, Greg is Greg all the way through.
Okay.
And the final ingredient is to catch the sun in a teacup, which is a bit of forced perspective because he puts the teacup on the stump and lets the sun, depart into the horizon right over the teacup. And then, the ceremony begins and he becomes engulfed with tree. But Beatrice is flung through the woods and collides by happenstance with Wirt and the frog, who's about to receive his final name. So I'm not going to spoil it, of course.
It's the biggest spoiler.
But they decide to work together. They're kind of like letting bygones be bygones. They're just got to help Greg. God damn it, Greg's such a good kid. We can't let him die. They make it there, and they try and break Greg out, but he's already being engulfed in the roots, and the branches are growing around him, and he coughs up leaves, and Peter's like, oh God, they're growing inside of him. It's like, no, I was just eating leaves. It's like, Greg to the very end. It's so funny. And there's a little encounter with the woodsman and the beast. And the woodsman, this whole time, he's been trying to protect the children, but also trying to find more wood to fuel his lantern because, as it turns out, the beast has made a deal with him, saying that the soul of his daughter, who had previously been lost to the woods, was in that lantern. And only by continuing to feed the lantern the oil would his daughter be able to live. And so this is what the woodsman's been sort of like, his life mission has been. But he sees Greg is turning into one of these trees, and he's horrified because like, I didn't know they came from children. She wouldn't have wanted this. And it's like Christopher Lloyd going all out. He's just a champion of.
He's going at it,
Yeah.
and it's the best.
That's just wonderful. But he has a little spat with the beast, and then Wirt and Beatrice are trying to break Greg out, and they can't. And the beast is like, "Give me the lantern." It's like, no. It's like, I have to save my brother. It's like, he's already lost to the woods now, but perhaps we can make a deal. I can put his soul in that lantern, and if you feed the lantern, then he will live forever. You don't want to lose your brother now, do you? And for a second, Wirt's like considering doing it, and he says, "No, that's dumb. That doesn't make any sense. I'm not gonna live in the woods forever. Like that's dumb." And the beast is just like, "No, you have to do it." And it's like, "No, I don't know. You're just obsessed with keeping this lantern lit for some reason, almost like your soul's in here." It's like, and then the woodsman realizes that's been the case, and he was never protecting his daughter. He was just a slave to the beast. And Wirt and Greg and Beatrice, and the final name for the frog is Jason Thunderburger.
Funderburger.
It is Funderburger.
It is Funderburger. I mean, I believe you.
I have been picturing a rather electrifying burger the entire time you've been
That's just
saying
what I
it.
heard when I heard it. I don't know. But Jason Funderburger. And they make their way out and they complete their journey to leave the woods. But the woodsman finally blows out the light in the lantern and the beast is destroyed.
And we get a beast reveal.
The beast, yeah, you
Beast
get
is
For like
mad
one
scary,
frame, but
It's
man,
awesome.
you gotta look that up
a
because
very brief image of the beast and showing like this terrible, like gnarled, like just holes and gashes and all kinds of nasty
Well, he
stuff.
looks like a bunch of like children's faces sewn together.
Yeah.
It's like
It's a very unsettling image, and it's only there for half a second, so it can still be TV PG.
yeah. It's like they do not step down the horror on that.
The people making this show know how to make things very unsettling and very frightening. They do a great job with all that. But in the end, Wirt and Greg part ways with Beatrice, and they wake back up, and they're
Don't forget
rescued.
that Wirt gives the scissors.
Yeah, Wirt gives the scissors to Beatrice as like a last little gesture, saying, "Well, I was mad at you. Here you go." And
Retreat.
they come back into the real world. Wirt wakes up underwater and he swims down, gets Greg, and brings him up. They get brought to the hospital. And there's a cute little reunion with Wirt and Sarah. And Sarah's like, "Oh, I don't have a tape player. And so you can definitely listen to it in my house." Like, invites her over. And, you know, everything's going to work out with them. And Greg is classic Greg the whole time. And then we get a little series of little moments with all the different characters we met, showing them all kind of living their lives after this series of events, and everyone has a happy ending. Beatrice's family are back to being people, and they joke about her turning
Eating
them all
dirt,
into blueberry.
so it was important. It comes back. And
They
has
gave
a
her so much
comeback.
crap about like, hey, you remember that time you cursed us all into being birds?
Yeah.
Don't be throwing stones at bluebirds, man.
But it's a friendly family reunion. The woodsman's daughter comes back. I guess
Yeah.
the beast's dark
Unexplained.
deeds have been undone by that great gesture of overcoming his influence. And the frogs are in the mud, and the fish is on the water, and Lorna and Auntie Whispers are happy together, supposedly. Sipping tea.
Despite what you think.
Despite my predilections toward their
I think you're
uneven
biased, dude.
relationship. I'm just saying, I'm sure they're happy together. I'm just saying that, like, you know, that might be something worth discussing in some kind of, like, family therapy session.
Are you projecting?
Perhaps we could just discuss it on a podcast or
I
something.
I do have an aunt who used to command my every move.
With a bell, she would
Yeah.
be like, Samuel,
Yeah. But anyway,
eat these turtles.
yeah,
Or
but
whatever.
that's not really relevant to the conversation. Anyway, so everything works out, everything's happy, and then we end on a shot of a spinning piano with Jacob Thunderburger the Frog singing. Jason Thunderburger the Frog.
Thunderbird.
Thunderburger. I don't know. I feel like I'm just going to start.
It's the most important name in the series.
Jason Thunderburger the Frog on a piano, rotating into the distance, and the show ends. And it's, that's
Yeah,
it.
He sings this little song.
Yeah. It's a beautiful, beautiful show. It's so funny. It's so weird and horrifying and,
It's quirky, man.
yeah, impactful. Like, the imagery is so, it really sticks with you.
The parallels of the Divine Comedy.
Explain further.
I think she pretty much said it all.
Yeah, I don't think I need to go into that.
I don't think there's any additional details we
I
need
think that's it.
Okay.
painting a picture with words.
I am being serious, though.
Yeah, honestly. It's so, it just feels timeless.
Yeah. There's a Beatrice in each story. The Beatrice in the Divine Comedy leads the main character from purgatory to heaven. So, I don't know, guys. You tell me.
I believe it.
So is she Virgil in the first part? No.
I don't know. I never read the book.
Fair enough.
What can I say?
I read the Divine Comedy.
I read some of it, but
Yeah.
not.
I read the first part.
I stopped reading at Paradiso because at that point I was just like, wow, all this stuff's great. And it's like, this isn't as cool.
It's just like a love story at the end, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't read it.
Probably.
Oh,
is.
right.
It's
I didn't
probably
read the end.
something gay.
Yeah. Anyway.
That Dante.
So, yeah. What are our kind of like, anyone else having like little moments or kind of overall thoughts they want to have about it?
I don't know. I think that we really talked about it for a long time.
We did.
Well, we summarized it.
Going through every episode was, it really like, there's just a lot.
Yeah, but we got to let out some fun facts and we got to talk about some silly moments.
Yeah.
Oh, the big pumpkin at the end was a cat.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Just so you know.
Yeah.
Ina.
It's another one of those great little reveals.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, does that make sense? Oh, yeah, sure. Why not? It's a cartoon.
It's a thing. I don't know.
It's a magical land of pumpkin skeletons.
Yeah. Well, I think there is a thing where in the graveyard in like sort of the real world in episode 9, one of the graves is marked Endicott,
Yeah.
sort of implying that
This is like the land of the dead.
sort of, but
the
that
land
also
that passed
interesting. That also makes it seem like, okay, so what the heck is Pottsfield then? Is that where the dead died twice, or
I don't know. It could also just be like they're different versions of the land of the dead, because like each story is set in a different
Yeah.
little like space where people kind of are.
yeah, they're not
Engaging
connected by
there.
any like real thing.
Yeah, they're just off in the woods.
Yeah. And those are not even necessarily like the same time frame or anything. Like a lot of them, like the haircuts and stuff, we can tell that like it's like Victorian England or something like that.
Yeah, they're very intentional about like the architecture and the set dressing and like the outfits and mannerisms of all the characters. So they're all kind of representing different time periods and different eras, which are all like interestingly enough kind of represented in that like very classic animation, but also in like various fairy tales and different like fables and legends and myths and things throughout time.
Yeah, because Mr. Endicott looks like he's from like the late 1800s, whereas like the people in the tavern, I forget what the name is, but they look like they're more from like the 1700s.
Yeah, it's like it's a very like commedia dell'arte cast of characters,
Good stuff.
and that's all you need to know about that. But
How could anyone hate this show?
I don't know.
Well, you said you did find a critical review, didn't you?
So you might not know this, Kyler, but on the show, as I mentioned before, so you do know it. But for the sake of the audience, who should also know it because they're listening to every episode on
You
repeat,
better be.
Yeah, we really rely on you to do that.
Talking to
'cause
you, Adam Sandler.
Adam Sandler.
Our sponsors will not forgive us unless we keep these numbers up.
Just ask David Spade if he wants to listen to it with you. Okay, it's fine. He doesn't need to listen to it himself. Just get him into it. But
Just get him into it. Just
Yeah,
like
come on.
mentioning it.
I'm just.
He doesn't need to listen to the podcast.
I mean-
he just needs to endorse it.
You gotta do a little. You gotta do a little hustle if we want to make it on like the big internet airwaves. But one of the aspects of the podcast, because this is a smear campaign, blurring animation, we also like to read negative reviews of all the things we watch, because usually we watch things that we enjoy. A couple things we've had mixed thoughts on, but generally like
Just one thing. Onward.
yeah, Onward was not the best movie in the world, but it's not important. We're not talking about that. I swear to God, we're not.
Don't hate us, guys.
But we usually just look up some negative reviews, mostly for fun. But not a lot of people review TV shows in the way that they do review movies on Rotten Tomatoes. And so the only
if they don't like them, they would just not finish them.
Yeah, you've got to commit to like every episode.
Honestly, if you don't like Over the Garden Wall, you could 10 minutes in and you're fine.
Yeah. I mean, that's my first experience watching the thing, because I was like interested to see it when it first came out, but I saw the first episode and was like, I don't know about this, because a lot of that was like, it was Wirt philosophizing to himself, and that was like setting up his character and giving us like the idea of like where he's at and where he needs to grow. But the first time I watched it, I was like, I don't know if I want to watch this guy for 10 episodes.
Yeah.
So I had that initial thought. But
I was a teen, so I was like, this guy is literally me.
that's a fair point.
So what did your negative review say?
I did find one negative review, kind of negative. It's mostly just like not very positive. Every other review I saw was like glowing, and everyone was like, "Wow, it's amazing!
This is perfect.
This is the greatest thing in the world. I'll watch it every year at Halloween and Thanksgiving." But this review basically says, "Over the Garden Wall aspires to and in part achieves true whimsy, which doesn't make the outlook for this animated not-so-grim fairy tale for adults any less cloudy. Patrick Michael's creation has been expanded into a 10-part miniseries. Each night runs a half hour, consisting of 2 chapters. You guys have both watched the initial pilot, right?
Yes.
Where they meet like vegetable people and they get attacked by crows.
The less creepy vegetable people, yes.
Yeah, another creepy. It's very much in the same like tone, and like it feels very connected to the
It's
world.
like these like 2 human boys, and they're very obviously in like this like vegetable village, and they
and the tone
sort
is
of
all-
don't belong there, but like there's another story going on that doesn't like necessarily like involve them too much.
and the characters are all very like warm and sweet and simple.
You simple boy.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's a simple boy. Maybe he's simple.
Maybe he's simple.
When
No,
they-
no.
So,
Oh, you're not the simple boy you thought you were.
yeah, in the tavern when they ask Wirt what his occupation is, essentially he's like, I don't know, I'm just me, and then they're just like, maybe he's simple. They think he's just like the village idiot or something.
This review, which by the way is by Brian Lowry from Variety.com.
Totally.
His basically, to sum it up, he says, yet, while the notion of two brothers seeking a way home is simple enough, the resulting production might be a bit too mature for kids and not edgy enough for young adults. Who that leaves is anybody's guess, but credit the network for taking a leap of faith over this wall. So he's basically saying, this isn't really for anyone, is it? Except for, like, weirdos who are going to like it.
God,
So
I
are
wish
we
the show
young
was
adults?
edgier.
This miniseries thus feels like an admirable experiment, but a bit of a tweener, one that lacks the heft to sustain the 5-night commitment. All in all, though, given the glut of snide animated programs out there, Cartoon Network deserves credit for trying to do something that's more than just another brick in the wall. Very clever writing, very wonderful stuff by Brian Lowry, but you're wrong.
It's like, you tried.
Yeah. It's like, well, at least it's different. It's like, come on, man.
Too bad everyone loves it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, it gives off such a distinct and, powerful vibe.
I like to think the thought that it's just like, oh, older audiences only want edgy content.
Yeah.
If the content's not edgy, it's just not gonna fly.
But we're giving them clicks, so who's the real loser?
Me, because I'm the one with the computer with the clicks on it.
And also, I'm just a fucking nerd.
Yeah. That's also why we're the losers. But, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like if you've watched Over the Garden Wall, you know why it's an amazing show. But this was fun to just sort of, give
Talk
out...
about it?
Yeah, just talk about it, give out all of our kind
And
of...
if you haven't, sorry for
Spoilers.
the glut of spoilers.
now that we've completely spoiled the whole thing, I would recommend watching the show before listening to the podcast. So make sure you do that.
And since he's the magical editor, he can just put that at the very beginning.
Not gonna do that, though. That would be insincere.
What a waste of time.
Yeah, that's too much work.
All right, well, if you're in that strange state, just go watch it anyway. It's very, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, the art style, the backgrounds.
The backgrounds are
super well
so
done.
rich and detailed and vivid, just very painterly. And
Yeah, the texture.
yeah. And the characters are so simple. Just very simple little circle heads and circle eyes and little triangle noses.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it's they're iconic in their own weird little way.
It's good stuff.
Yeah.
Name one other
Quality.
character with a teapot on their head throughout the entire series.
What?
Name one other character with a teapot on their head throughout the entire series.
Wart.
War.
The main
Right.
character, Wart, and Gurg. I don't feel like I'm doing a great job.
Wart.
remembering
I'm
names.
from a different media.
He's
Um,
an elephant.
Yeah, I guess name another elephant is what you're really asking.
Babar.
Babar, yeah.
Yeah.
Arthur. Anteaters aren't too far away from being elephants.
What?
I don't know. I think we've said about all we can say.
Yeah, that's enough.
I'll cut
That's
that out.
enough now.
Don't worry, I'll cut that out.
Anyway.
Well, I guess that's all we have. Do we want to talk about
Horton's
what we want
another
to watch?
elephant. Okay, no.
Yeah, what
Yeah.
do we want to watch next time? Oh, I have a list.
Oh yeah, Esperanza's got a list of things.
Of course she does.
Make it edgier, please.
Kyler, what
I
did
couldn't
you...
really appreciate it.
What was this experience of being on the podcast while Esperanza's bringing up this list?
Oh, it was wonderful. I enjoyed myself immensely.
Did you?
Alright,
Did you really?
Well, I'd enjoy myself a little bit more if you paid me, but I'm sorry, your benefits have been not ideal, so...
Yeah, well,
I don't know.
yeah.
I'll see if Serial's doing another season or something like that. I can go on that.
I guess that's also an option that you could probably pursue. That would be nice. But,
So, that's the list.
you gotta listen. Do you want to pick which one we would go with?
I don't want to do Boss Baby.
We don't need to do Boss Baby.
Oh, what's wrong with Boss Baby?
Don't say that, Kylie. If you haven't seen it, you don't get
If
to
you say it
talk
again,
about
he's gonna be summoned like Beetlejuice.
We can do...
Boss Baby, Boss Baby, Boss Baby. Oh my god.
We should do...
He's here!
I got a call from Boss
We
Baby
should
at
do
3 a.m.
Coco. We should do
Coco.
Coco.
Yeah, let's do Coco.
That's
Coco's
the
so
best
good.
movie.
We're going through a bunch of good stuff right now.
I know, I can't help myself. These are all good movies.
What happens when you run out of good stuff and you just gotta do bad stuff?
We're not gonna make that many
We did
episodes.
Triplets in Belleville. It's a good movie.
It's strange the way you phrase that. It's almost as if you didn't think that was a good movie.
Yet you refused to do Joshua
We
in the
did
Promised Land.
Onward.
We did
You
Onward.
refused to do Joshua in the Promised Land.
We did Flushed Away.
We did do Flushed
Oh my
Away.
goodness.
Kylie.
We also did Prince of Egypt, which people love this movie.
It's a good film.
It's a
It's,
very good film.
it's
It's
fantastic.
a little strange.
I have no critiques.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well, I guess that's all we gotta say about Wander Over. Over the Garden Wall. I almost went through the whole thing without calling it Wander Over Yonder, but I didn't.
damn you.
But since that's everything, bye.
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 That's how we close the episode, for some reason.
Well, I know that now.